The Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond.
You're awful.
And AJ Applegarth.
It's Sin Shu Chu. It's a mouthful.
All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me, as usual, is AJ Applegarth. What's up, man?
Oh, not much. Just getting my stretches on before the show. Just gotta, all right. Let's do it.
So are we supposed to combine our shirts and make one of your, 4-year-olds or filials or whatever shirt it is? No, I'm not going to do that. Just making fun of your shirt from last week.
No,
cool.
not today.
Yeah, we are discussing the NL East today. We've got good show ahead, discussing all those good teams. And just before we jump into it, just want to remind everybody to follow us, subscribe wherever you listen and watch us, Periscope, YouTube, now Facebook, on our Fantasy Six-Pack page there, and obviously iTunes, Spotify the day after. Go ahead and do that. We appreciate the support. We are using a new hosting platform, so unfortunately there's no Beer of the Week audio. I'll figure out something soon. I think I'm gonna miss that. I like hearing Homer Simpson's voice every week in my ear. But AJ, let's do our Beer of the Week, and let's have you start.
Beer.
You didn't have to do it too.
Yes, I did. Do you not realize that I basically just record myself singing to songs randomly on my way to work now that I have a fun commute? Yeah. Okay. So
no, you probably shouldn't have told me that, because I'm going to make fun of you forever for now.
Probably. All right.
Yeah, as I should.
think that would have happened regardless. Anyway. All right. So I am going with the somewhat home turf here with the Trogs Independent Brewing out of Central PA and Hershey, actually. Hop Cyclone Hazy Double IPA. Believe I may have had one of these on here before, but
probably. No, they're good stuff, man.
And I don't really care, so I'm having it again.
Yeah, as you should. All right, I'm drinking a local brew, Columbia, Maryland, Black Flag Brewing, Double Promise Hazy Double IPA. 8.5. I expected more from this, honestly. It was sort of underwhelming. I gave it a 3 3/4. Honestly, every time I drink it, I'm sort of like, I don't really know why I gave it that, but it's okay. It's to me, like, when IPAs 3.5 to 3 3/4 is sort of like your just standard average IPA. It's sort of like, you're not bad, you're drinkable. I can go to a restaurant and go get you again. Yeah, it wasn't anything great, but I mean, it's fine though. I'll drink it, and I'll drink it on the show. Cheers.
All right. Yeah. Cheers to our first StreamYard broadcast.
Absolutely.
Hello, Facebook. We see you.
Hopefully. I'm still trying to find it, actually.
Okay. Well,
I haven't gotten there yet.
Maybe not.
Let's see what happens. Going to our page. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know where it is. I can't. Oh yeah. There we are. Cool. Yep. Hi, Facebook. All right. Let's get on with it, though. Bring our guest on here, writer for Fantasy Six-Pack, Mike Sollicito. How's it going, man?
Going good. I'm excited for the show today. I was glad I was able to write for the NL East. I'm a Yankees fan, but I had a few Mets fans. So I got their opinions on some stuff for the Mets and all that. So it was an awesome time.
Yeah, man. Obviously, Mike wrote the NL East preview for FantasySixPack.net. So we appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons why we've got him on the show. Let's just jump right into it, man. The Atlanta Braves. Obviously a good team. Didn't make a lot of additions, although they added a good starting pitcher in Charlie Morton, who had a little bit of a down 2020, but whatever. They added Drew Smiley, and then they added just recently Jake Lamb, but I personally don't really know if that's going to be worth anything. This starting roster here, the starting lineup that we've got, if Fangraphs wants to load tonight, don't do this to me again. There we go. So leading off right now, projected on RosterResource through Fangraphs. Leading off, we got Ronald Acuna, and then Freddie Freeman right behind him, Marcell Ozuna, Travis Darnaud, Ozzie Albies, Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley, and Kristen Pache. It's loaded lineup, really. It is in the pitching: Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson, Drew Smiley, and Kyle Wright, and then Will Smith and a bunch of others mixed in with the closer role here. Let's jump right into the first question. It's about Freddie Freeman. AJ, take it away, man.
All right. Mr. Freeman himself has been quite the model of consistency for his fantasy owners in nearly every year of his current 8-year contract that actually just happens to be up at the end of this season. Now, Freeman obviously missed a little bit of time in 2015 and again in 2017, almost identical, 44 and 45 games respectively. He's only missed 8 games in every other year of this contract since 2014, though. So all that being said, are Freeman's consistent counting stats enough for you to take him at his current ADP, which is 11.4? I mean, he's the only player going that high who has very little stolen base potential.
Like you said, Freeman has been, he's been amazing throughout his career, especially for fantasy, and he plays a prime position at first base. I would say that I feel like I'd end up passing on him. He's a great player, don't get me wrong. And actually, one of my friends drafted him first round last year, and he ended up having an MVP year. So he rubs it off our faces.
As he should.
Yeah,
as he should. But I don't really think that he's worth being drafted around 11 because, like you said, he doesn't have much stolen base potential. And while first base is a premium position, I'd rather wait for somebody, like a Jose Abreu if he runs later, or even someone like, I know he's going relatively high, but Luke Voigt, all those guys, they're still going to hit home runs. While they may not have the same average as Freeman, they'll still produce the runs, RBIs, and homers just as well as he does. So I mean, he's been, like you said, he's been a model of consistency, but I don't see myself grabbing him that early. I'd rather grab somebody with, that I know that has the potential to be a 5-category stud, right around that pick.
Joe?
Yeah, I feel you there, man. So I'm currently in the TGFBI drafts, and I had the 15. Now, neither one fell to me, but it was looking like for a minute that him and Bellinger were both going to fall to me. And I honestly was going to take Bellinger over him because he gives me at least those 10 to 12 steals. And I was going to pair him up with Lindor. Like, I moved Lindor way up in that league that I have him ranked right now just because, I needed those steals, and I'm on 15. I'm not getting them coming back to me. So I just had to boost Lindor up. And we'll get to him a little later, I feel like. So not to harp too much on there, but I don't know. AJ, you got anything else to add here with Freeman? He's a solid player, man, and his county stats are phenomenal, especially the batting average. Like, that batting average is great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That just to be able to get someone with such a great average, I feel like you can always find steals later on if you really want to. Or if you just punt it in general. I mean, average is harder to come by, in my opinion, than steals. So
yeah, TGFBI's Roto. It's hard to punt categories in Roto.
Well,
you're thinking head to head.
That's true.
Like, you just can't do it in Roto. You're gonna die.
Yeah. I mean, he'll get you a couple, but he's not a stolen base threat at all. But I don't think I can reach for him in the first round. So yeah, I'd probably be passing on him.
All right, let's move on here to the man of fantasy baseball, Ronald Acuna. He's the number 1 ADP pick right now. I mean, look, I've got him ranked number one, but I always just want to ask this question. You know, he had the batting average drop in 2020. It went down to 250. You know, I think he was out for a week or so with a injury. I forget exactly what it was, but you know, does the drop in average make you think he should be behind Tatis or Betts, you know, who are obviously awesome as well, or you just full steam ahead with Acuna?
I think last year when I came on here, I was asked an Acuna question. And I said that I think that if anybody in the MLB has the potential to go for 40-40, it's him. And listen, I love Tatis. I think he's an up and coming star. He's going to be the face of the MLB if he's not already. And Betts is, he's just as good. Obviously not on Tatis's level. But I would go with Acuna as the number one, just because, like I said, I feel like he really has the ability to go 40-40. I do love Tatis, but I believe that last year it was just kind of a weird season all around. So I feel like we can evaluate certain players. Like Tatis, obviously, he was fantastic. If you look at his baseball savant page, it's just loaded with dark red. And that's what you want. But I feel like Acuna, he could raise his average a little bit, maybe hit like around 260, 270-ish. He could even maybe push that a little bit higher. Obviously, he's had a bit of a strikeout problem, not a major one, but he does have a little bit of a strikeout problem. And I mean, who doesn't? He's ridiculously young. It's only going to come as he gets more playing time and exposure, that he should be able to kind of figure it out. Like if you look at Mike Trout, I believe he's still lowering his strikeout rate year by year. And he's 30 now. But I would go with Acuna, just because I feel like he's a safe pick. While outfield is relatively deep, I would say shortstop is also deep. And I don't think Betts has the same kind of ceiling as being able to possibly being able to put up a 40-40 season. So I would personally draft Acuna over Betts and Tatis.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not a hard choice to take him first, but again, I'd be looking at the type of league I'm in, and if average is factored in, if it's a category or a roto league and you're going after the average, I might pass on Acuna and go with Betts. I just feel like he's safer in that one category, along with still getting you, points and stats in the other categories as well that you'll get with Acuna. So that's kind of my thought on it. You can't really go wrong either way, but that's how I would value it.
Yeah, no, like I said, Acuna is my number one already, so not much to talk about.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's flip the script here to the pitching side of things. So, I mean, Atlanta, they've got a pretty good pitching staff overall. Max Fried is the highest ADP of the staff at around 66 overall. Anderson and Morton are around 100 and 110. I mean, that's a pretty far drop off between those guys. But I mean, are you going to jump in on Fried at that ADP of 66?
I would say it kind of depends on where my team is when I'm drafting. I know personally I like to, within like the first probably 5 or 6 rounds, I try to grab maybe 4 bats to 2 starting pitchers. I'm a big starting pitcher guy, and I get a lot of flack for it in my leagues. I love having a loaded pitching, just because
starting pitching is getting way more up this year, man. You're gonna have to go even higher than that. There's people taking two first round picks. With both pitching in TGFBI and those big time leagues like that. It's insane.
I see pitching, like I feel like I've seen so many different tweets of like there's like 16 pitchers taken like the first like 20 something picks. Like it's always a ridiculous amount.
I mean the strategy is got a name for it now. It's called pocket aces. Like it's like a thing now. It's like, okay, I get it, but wow. There's so many good hitters that get passed up. It's so hard for me to flip the switch like that.
Yeah, that's why I said it kind of depends on where my team is. I love Max Fried. I do think that he's really, really good. But they have other guys like Anderson, like Morton, and they also have Soroka. I feel like he's a big lost name.
Yes, he is.
He did have that Achilles injury in August, but I've been seeing reports lately that he can kind of be back either by opening day, if not a few weeks into the season. And I feel like, I don't know where he's going. I feel like he's probably going relatively late. But I enjoy him, and I think that he's a really solid pitcher. He generates weak contact, and while he doesn't have the big strikeout rates, I think that he could be really, really solid. Granted, the Achilles injury is tough to come back from, but I know Wainwright came back from it in 5 months, and it's already been 6 months for Soroka. So I think that he should be back relatively soon. And I know we're talking about Fried here, I feel like it really depends on who else is around when I'm drafting right there. Like I know sometimes Burns is right around or available right there. Woodruff is probably a little bit higher, but I feel like I probably end up going with Fried there just because I'm personally a big Fried fan. I think that he can continue the strides he made last year into this year, and I have a lot of faith with what the Atlanta pitching development, what they're doing over there with their young pitchers. So I would personally draft him, but again, it also really depends on where my team is at that point.
Yeah, to me, like that 6th round range, the way that I've been kind of doing a couple mocks here and there, and obviously in TGFBI, I take like one pitcher sort of early, and then I'm loading up on bats, and then right around where he's going again is when I start jumping back into pitchers, because I don't like the bats as much down there. I feel like they're all kind of the same as the guys you can get 2 or 3 rounds later. So I'm fine kind of loading up on my pitching in that range where, if you go starting pitching, 1, 2, 2 out of the first 3 rounds, you're kind of forced to skip that range where Max Fried or Fried, I don't know. Is it Fried? Did I totally mispronounce that?
I feel like it's Fried. I don't know.
I thought it was Fried. I don't know why.
I mean, it's spelled Kentucky Fried Chicken, so
but
I don't know.
But anyway, let's move on here to Jeff's telling us it's Fried. So win for me. Yeah. All right. Miami Marlins here. So we got
all right. New to the team. I think we're trying to steal my thunder here. I'll talk about these Marlins. We got Adam Duvall and Anthony Bass, who could be suiting in as the possible closer here. Projected lineup. I feel like now I'm having Fangraphs issues.
Yeah, so it was kind of
that's
slow
awesome.
Me,
but... right. Loading.
Maybe we should bring that up before we get to it.
Okay. All right. So we got Corey Dickerson in left field. We got Starling Marte. Got Jesus Aguilar. Adam Duvall, who we just mentioned, in the cleanup spot. Brian Anderson and Miguel Rojas. Edwin Diaz and Jorge Alfaro. Rounding out that lineup there. And then pitching, we've got Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez. We got Alicier Hernandez, Sixto Sanchez, and Trevor Rogers. So take it away, Joe.
All right. So, going right into this pitching staff. I mean, this pitching staff is kind of quietly good. Nobody really cares about it because it's the Marlins, but they're sneakily good. And the fantasy community is kind of bought into it a little bit, but maybe not as much as they should have. And we'll start with Pablo Lopez. His ADP is 140 roughly. And, but I wonder, should we buy into that price? We've seen Pablo kind of go up and down in his career so far. Now he was really good last year, but again, it was 2020 and that's 2020. Do we see him continuing or possibly getting better, or do we see him maybe regressing and going closer back to his 2019 numbers?
So I'm a very big Pablo guy. I wrote about him in the NL East breakdown as one of my, I forgot what I put him under. I think maybe sleeper. because I really like him. I don't think that he gets much better than he was last year. I feel like last year's probably the max that he can do. But he does throw a lot of pitches, and he was actually working on adding another breaking ball to his arsenal this year.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
And I really like I love him. I think that he understands the game a lot. Like I've watched a few of his like post game interviews and stuff, and he's always he's very critical of himself. And I feel like he's someone that really wants to put in the work to get better. And I feel like he has done that over the past year and a half, 2 years now, because he's taken a big jump from 2019 into 2020. And granted, you did say that it was 2020, and 2020 kind of was a really, really weird year. But I really like him. He's going around guys like Musgrove, like Gosman, and every single year, everybody says, "Oh, Joe Musgrove's going to break out. Oh, he's going to break out. He's going to break out." And I'm like, I'm over it. I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm done too.
And Gosman is solid. He's pitching, with the San Francisco Giants. Their ballpark last year was a little bit more hitter friendly than it usually is. Granted, I think that they brought in the left field and center field walls a little bit. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I don't know if we'll continue to see that this year. But again, I really, really like Pablo Lopez. He's able to really limit the hard contact. And while he doesn't strike out many guys, he has the stuff. I love pitchers that throw 4 to 5 pitches. Like I was very in on Burns beginning of last year as one of my favorite guys. He ended a breakout season just because I feel like for pitchers that only have 2 to 3 pitches, for example, like Glasnow, when one of them isn't working, it's very, very hard to get through a lineup. Whereas when pitchers that have 4 to 5 pitches, if they're like, oh, my cutter's not working, so they start throwing the sinker a little bit more. They start hitting guys with the 4-seam, the 2-seam. And, you see just a lot, like they're able to kind of push through the lineup because they have so many different pitches, and it's hard for hitters to kind of pick up on each pitch.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm very in on Pablo Lopez, because especially that he's adding this breaking ball. I'd love to see what he can do with it. And I feel like last year was probably right around, I feel like he could go around like a 3.4 to 3.6 ERA, like a mid 3, without too many strikeouts. But I feel like he could be a really solid pitcher, and I feel like people are kind of undervaluing him.
Yeah, I mean, his strikeout potential is, it's not fantastic, but it's not gonna like hurt you.
Exactly.
He's right there around the 9. I mean, last year he was at 9.26. You're fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
You get one an inning, you're okay. You would love more, but it is what it is. So, AJ, you want to jump on to the next guy here?
So with the next guy we're talking about here is Sandy Alcantara. Not a great K rate. He did improve it last year up to 836. Again, that's almost an inning, so pretty solid, for being a Marlins pitcher. He does have a more consistent ERA. He's been in the 3s the last 3 seasons, so it sounds like we might already know the answer based on the last one. But out of Alcantara and Lopez, which one would you rather have? Yeah,
I mean, like you said, we kind of already know the answer. I would much rather Lopez. I'm off of Alcantara. I do think that he's an all right back end arm, but he's not somebody that I'm drafting where he's going. Like if I've had gun to my head and like literally it was back to back Sandy Alcantara and Pablo Lopez, I would go Lopez and I would let Alcantara fall. He throws gas, but he doesn't have a really strong whiff rate on any of his pitches. And his curveball kind of lacks a little bit of spin, and he's not the best at, it's not like he gets hit hard, but he doesn't really generate the soft contact that you see Pablo do. And I feel like that's a big thing with pitchers. And I forgot to mention this with Pablo, but he limits the walks. And that's another thing that I find is important. And Alcantara can kind of let the ball get away from him sometimes. And he's had a problem with walks. And while he's been able to dial that down a bit recently, it's still something to kind of, keep in the back of your mind, that, somebody that, they don't generate very weak contact. They can kind of, let the ball, they can walk a lot of guys because they let the ball kind of go all over the place. And, while the velocity is nice with this fastball, I just much rather Lopez. I feel like he's just a safer play with everything that, is kind of being pointed to with the metrics.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like the swinging strike rate and stuff isn't great for him, and obviously we know that because the strikeout rate isn't there for him. But you would hope with a fastball like he's got, he would be better. But it's just not. I think it's somehow he's been getting by the FIP and the xFIP. It tells us he's not as good of a pitcher as he is, or as he has been. Especially with a fly ball rate, where it's been for him. So yeah, I'm a little off of him. I'm way more on Lopez, but I'll tell you, their ADPs are super close, and I don't think they should be. But next guy here, we'll move over to a bat. Obviously, we could go easy and talk about Marte and stuff like that, but we all know who they're going to be. Brian Anderson, though, he's a guy who sort of feels underrated. ADP is 246. Kind of a locked in 20 home run guy. It feels like, he hit it in 2019. He was well over that pace last year. What are your thoughts about Brian Anderson?
So I agree that he's a bit underrated. While I do feel like, 2019 was a year with, they say nothing was different with the ball. But clearly it was. Now the ball is a little bit deadened.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's someone to watch in that sense. I don't know his average home run distance or anything like that, but I feel like that could kind of play a factor.
Yeah, that's true.
To
that's true.
how many home runs he hits with the deadened ball. But I feel like last year he had a 39% hard hit rate, and the Marlins
solid.
It is solid. And he had an 87.4 exit velocity, and that's all right. It's you'd want it to be a little bit higher. But it's still relatively solid. And I do think that he has the potential to kind of fill in as a nice bench bat for you later in the rounds. And he's hitting he's one of their better hitters. I feel like while their pitching staff has kind of taken a lot of steps forward, their hitting, while they did acquire Marte, their hitting has kind of, I feel like, stayed kind of in neutral lately. And you hope that Corey Dickerson can have a nice bounce back and Marte can help with that. But I feel like Brian Anderson, I feel like he should be hitting around the 4 or 5 spot, and I feel like he could produce a little bit of runs, RBIs, and again, I feel like third base after the top few guys, it's not that deep. So again, I would definitely take a flyer on him. His strikeout rate hovers around 20%. He walks around 10%, so it's not like he's striking out a lot. He has a problem with the strikeout. So I think that he could really be a solid bounce back guy in terms of average and all that kind of thing. That kind of happened with him last year.
Yeah, I definitely like Anderson. I've owned him, kind of on and off the past few years. More as, like you said, a bench bat fill in, for injuries and whatnot. But he's got dual eligibility with the third base and the outfield. So now with most leagues pretty much being standard 5 outfielders, and also the corner infield or utility. I mean, you can plug him in wherever. And it's a nice thing to have with, days off and whatnot, or the injuries or whatever. So I definitely like Anderson. I like the upside. He's got some pop, and the counting stats are there for that ADP at least. So
absolutely. So, all right, well, let's jump into the New York Mets here. Lots of additions. I wish we could talk about more of them, but time prevents us from that. But we are going to talk about the first one here, and that's Francisco Lindor, obviously coming from the Cleveland offense here, moving to I think it's a pretty decent offense. Maybe not as good as Cleveland, but what's the expectations with Lindor going from Cleveland to New York now?
I would argue that the Mets lineup is a little bit better this year than the Indians lineup. You've seen the Indians kind of lose a lot of their players and kind of trade them away lately. And, you have like 3 guys competing for first base this year. You have Jimenez and Rosario at short. And, I feel like their lineup just isn't as good as it normally is. But with the Mets, I feel like their lineup was kind of taking a step forward. As for Lindor, I am a little bit, I wouldn't say concerned because it's Francisco Lindor, but I'm just concerned with the fact that the Mets have already come out and kind of said that Nimmo is their leadoff guy. So Lindor is no longer going to be in that leadoff spot. And I feel like that could kind of be beneficial towards him in the RBI area.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know exactly where I feel like he'll probably slot in around probably like 2 or 3 is my guess. With Alonso probably at 4 or Conforto at 4. But I do feel like, you know, it's a good lineup, especially the top part of that lineup. And, you know, he puts up the stolen bases still. I feel like he could be a 30 home run, you know, 20, 25 stolen base guy. And
Yeah.
you know, he should provide a relatively high average in the 280s, I'd say, even higher. And he has the potential to have 100 runs and 100 RBIs this year. You know, I feel like he's a locked-in first-round player. And I have a lot more confidence. Yeah, I know he had a down year last year. But, you know, I have a lot more confidence in him, I'd say this year than I did last year, just because I feel like last year there were so many uncertainties around him, around the, you know, the Indians lineup. You kind of saw them like sell everybody off. Now they're in like full on rebuild mode.
Mhm.
So, you know, I feel like he'll go back to being a stud. And yeah, I love Lindor, and you know, you're always going to be able to see that smile on your fantasy team.
Yeah, it's strange. Like a lot of the projections, and I get it, they're just projections. Like they really took, it feels like they took 2020 into a huge account for him. His projected batting average is no higher than 268.
Wow.
And I'm like, he never went lower than that until last year. And granted, it was 258, but like, wow. I mean, we're killing this guy for one sort of mediocre year in batting average. So I feel you, man. I'm all on board. And again, I took him at 16 in TGFBI, which was, you know, a few spots ahead of his ADP. But you know, I'm hoping the steals, you know, granted, yeah, batting third or fourth isn't going to really help him in the steals department, but they're still going to run this guy. They have to. That's what he's known for. And yeah, he's got 30 home runs in that in that bat for sure. So anyways, other guys new to the team, James McCann, got Jonathan VR, which is sort of an interesting player because, you know, that obviously might hurt McNeil and a whole bunch of other infielders he can move around, or they're going to have to move around. Who knows what's going to happen there with him. Carlos Carrasco to this rotation, which is very interesting. And then Taijuan Walker as well. And then the bolster of the bullpen, we got Trevor May. So, yeah, let's get into this starting lineup here. And just got off the page, so it's got to load for a second. I was there, and of course I jumped around. All right, yeah. So you're right, man. Brandon Nemo is projected as the leadoff. Then Jeff McNeil right now second base. Lindor's at third. Conforto's fourth. Alonso's fifth. Dominic Smith is sixth. JD Davis is seventh. And James McCann is catcher. I will say this though, Nemo's, you know, lefty and projected to be split potentially with Pilar. So I think the days that Pilar plays, Lindor slides right into first. That's my opinion. So yeah, I think that could be something there where you were talking about the steals. And then the starting rotation, it's nasty, man. DeGrom, Carrasco, Stroman, Walker, David Peterson, and we're going to get Noah Syndergaard back probably in a month and a half. So it's going to be loaded. It's going to be fun to watch this team, I think. AJ, let's jump into the first question.
Yeah, Syndergaard actually was just placed on the 60-day IL.
Was he really?
February 20th, so a couple of weeks ago, but that potentially could push that start back even more. Anyway, yes, first question here. Pete Alonso. Now, he pretty much disappointed slightly last season with the dip in batting average, getting off to a really slow start, only 6 home runs through the first month and change. I mean, are you worried about this? Do you think he can bounce back this season, or are these red flags that you need to look at and kind of hold him back in the homers to maybe, you know, mid 30s? Because that's terrible.
You know, I feel like mid 30s is probably his floor for home runs. You know, the power potential it's unreal. You know, he absolutely smokes the ball. But you know, his problem has always been strikeouts. He's a big strikeout guy. And I feel like that's going to hinder his average. I feel like he's probably more of a 240, 250 guy. 250, maybe. I mean, I feel like maybe he could push 260, but I feel like 250 is probably where I project him to go. 250 with, at least 35 home runs, I would say. I feel like I've seen people say that they're or that they would project him for around 40, 45. Like I said, I wouldn't push that past him. He has absolutely monster power. But I do think that, you have to take into account that, you're not going to really get the average that you want with him. He's going to go on streaks. He's a very streaky guy. There'll be weeks where he probably single-handedly wins you home runs, and there's going to be weeks where you're expecting him to hit, maybe 3-4 dingers, and he's left you with one, hitting 116 on the entire week. So I feel like his strikeout is going to leave him as a streaky player. But I do think that the power potential is unreal, and he has the upside to lead the NL in home runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally feel it. Look, I had him last year, and he was abysmal to start the year, and then September, it was like a totally different player, man. He hit 10 home runs in 1 month. It was incredible. Yeah, he could hit me 250, 240 at that point, and I didn't really care. I'm probably passing on him in most leagues just because I'm going to go elsewhere at that position. But yeah, I think a little bit of bounce back is in the future for him, but it's not going to be crazy. His hard hit rate went way down, which I expect to come back up. He's just got too much power in that bat for it not to come back up, and I think that's going to help his home runs maybe stabilize a little bit. So that's where I would go with that one here. But let's jump over to another power hitter for this team, and it's Dominic Smith. Last year was his breakout season. We know what he did, and it was incredible. Granted, there was a DH. Now, look, he didn't DH every day. He actually played a lot in the field. First base, played left field, he played in the outfield. But, defense is a gigantic liability for this guy. And now that there's not a DH, they can't just slide him in there, when he's not going to play the field. Do you think there's any concerns here with playing time with Dominic Smith, and so you pass on him in drafts?
I do have a little bit of concerns when it comes to the playing time with him. But I feel like his bat is just so damn good that they got to get him in the lineup somehow. Like you said, his defense is liabilities, but I feel like he's penciled in right now as one of their main left field guys that they're going to kind of rotate to. And JD Davis did see a little bit of time in left field occasionally last year and the year prior, and I feel like he's going to be mainly I feel like honestly one of the best things that happened to them is Cano being suspended, because it kind of opened up a few things for him. Now you can slot McNeil at second, JD Davis at third, and then that opens up left field for them to use one of the 18 outfielders that they signed. They signed like Malik Smith, they signed Pilar, and they have Dom Smith, and they have a lot of options that they can go to. But I feel like for the most part, they'll probably start with Dom Smith in the outfield. They'll start their games with Dom Smith in the outfield to kind of get his bat on the lineup, and then I wouldn't be surprised if by the seventh inning they pull him a lot more often and toss in a better defensive guy just to kind of preserve the game, especially if they're they're winning the game. But he's another guy that he smokes the ball, doesn't strike out too much. He had an expected batting average of 301 last year, which backs his 316 average. I feel like he finally broke out in a true way. And while the playing time is a little bit concerning, he's someone that I'm targeting heavily in drafts because, like I said before or earlier in the podcast, first base is kind of a wasteland after the top 5, 6, 7 guys. So I feel like if you can grab him, if you're passing on first base early on, you can kind of grab him and slot him in there. I think that on the days that he does play, which I believe to be relatively often, I think that he can really be a true help to your lineup. I'm a big Dom Smith guy, and I really do like him. I think that he can provide exactly what he did last year. Maybe not as high in the average department, but he's got the home run potential. He's hitting on a great lineup, and he should hit for relatively high average at first base outfield position eligibility for you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that because of his defensive liability, that he's just going to be one of those guys that is always a defensive replacement later in the games. and it's going to hurt his value some, but they have options to plug and play, like you said. So I still think he's going to get most of the playing time, but it could taper off a little bit here and there, depending. And who knows, maybe he's worked on his defense in the offseason and could surprise people. But until I see it, I'm not buying it.
I'm out on him. I just don't want to take the risk on him losing, a third of a game's batting attempts because they're going to slub him out. So especially if he plays outfield more, no, that ain't going to work. If it was first base, I'd say, okay, it might be worth it. But I know he's got the eligibility there for fantasy baseball, but that's probably where he's not going to play. He's slotted as the starting outfielder. So I do worry about it. I know I'm a little more risk adverse than others, and Ariel Cohen was on here on Monday talking to us about that too. And I agree with him. I'm risk adverse. When it comes to it, I'll take some risks, but I'm going to take risk where there's upside, not where it's risk where there's massive downsides, where it's you're buying them high, right? You're not, and you're dealing with if they bottom out, you're screwed. Dom Smith, I just don't feel like is that good of a payment right now. So,
So, all right, well, moving back into the starting pitching here, as you said, they're very, very good. But their problem is the bullpen. Can they be trustworthy enough to get them the wins or to preserve wins? Obviously, we're looking hard at Edwin Diaz here. He's been up and down the last 3 seasons, has not been able to keep it very consistent at all. And he was a lockdown closer at one point, and he's just not with New York. So what are your thoughts on the bullpen here?
I feel like the signings that they made in the offseason are going to provide a big boost for them. They signed Trevor May. They signed Aaron Lope. I don't know how to say his name. They signed Jacob
Lope,
They grabbed Mike Montgomery, who I know, he's nothing really special.
Oh, solid.
But, he's just another arm. They're going to get a full year of Miguel Castro. He has a devastating sinker. While he may get lit up a little bit, I feel like this is a relatively solid bullpen. I know Seth Lugo being out for the first, I don't know if it's first few weeks or months, but I know he's probably going to miss around 3 to 4 weeks, at least. With him being out, it's going to be a little bit more risky for them. And, you're right. Edwin Diaz, he's been very up and down the past 3 seasons. We saw him go from the best reliever in baseball
to one of the worst.
and getting traded for Jared Kalenic to one of the worst. But I feel like, he'll be the closer for them. And he did make he made a few strides last year. His walk rate is still kind of iffy, but, we kind of started to see a little bit of the Diaz that they traded for. And it was kind of nice. I feel like some of it might have had to do with, the being in the spotlight, being in New York, and just him not used to it. Obviously, you can say that about anybody that gets moved to New York. But he's probably someone that I'm avoiding in drafts, just because, like you said, when it comes to risk, I feel like while he can, provide a great amount of saves, I feel like there's also the risk that after the first month of the season, he's yanked at closer and they go with somebody else. So I'd rather wait on him. And, I know there's not many closers that are established right now, and a lot of them are kind of going to committees and stuff like that. But he's just someone that I kind of don't really want to take the risk on. But if he falls deep enough, I might end up grabbing him. I'm usually not someone to draft relief pitcher early.
Yeah, in a saves only league, it's slightly different. Diaz is one of the last guys at this point that I'm going all right, fine, I'll take the plunge. But he's definitely top 5-6 in my book. It's just tough with him, man. You hope he doesn't go back to 2019. You're just praying, but there's reasons to like Iglesias better. There's reasons to like a whole lot of these guys better. So yeah, it's hey Trent, thanks for the shout out, man. Appreciate it. Saw the comment there. But yeah, I mean, there's reasons to get on board with Diaz. You know, he's gonna be the guy there. Like, I don't really think any of these other guys behind him are going to take the job, and unless he just completely bottoms out. So yeah, there's reason to like him for that reason alone, really. So let's move over here to the Phillies. And AJ, I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty small. I get it. But I got the old school Phillies thing here. I can pull it up here. Hang on.
I do. I see that. That's nice.
A little old school Phillies helmet for you, buddy.
I like it. The maroon.
I got these Baskin Robbins ice cream hats from back in the early 90s. So I unfortunately do not have a Nats, and I do not have a Marlins because the Marlins were not even a team back then. But I do have an Expos. Hell yeah.
That's
so
Nats.
Nats
North, bro.
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. So,
north of the border, eh?
It'd be real fun when we go to the NL West and I have only 3 helmets because 2 of the teams are expansion teams, Arizona and Colorado. I got nothing for them. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
I don't know. Maybe
they don't make these anymore.
They're stored somewhere away with all those Frank Thomas cards you don't have.
They don't make these anymore. So
all right. Yes.
Anyway,
all right. So
move on to the Phillies, man.
New to the team. We've got Archie Bradley, speaking of Arizona, Tony Watson, Brandon Kinsler, I'm sensing a theme here, Brad Miller, and Matt Moore. So the projected lineup here is Andrew McCutchen in the leadoff spot, followed up with Alec Baum, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto. Thank you for signing him. Rhys Hoskins at 5, Didi Gregorius, thank you for signing him again. Gene Segura and Scott Kingery in center field, followed up by whatever flavor of pitcher is pitching that day. Speaking of pitchers, we've got Aaron Nola leading the starting rotation here, followed up by former Met Zach Wheeler, Zach Eflin, Vince Velasquez, and Matt Moore. That needs to change. I think they need to just go with a 4-man.
Good luck with that. There's teams going to 6-man. You're trying to go to a 4-man. It ain't gonna happen.
No, they need an opener. I mean, Velasquez could potentially be an opener because he's only good for about.
Well, who knows? They might, man. With that. It kind of makes sense, but hey, we got a question from Trent. He wants to know what jersey you're wearing. Who is that?
What jersey I'm wearing?
Yeah,
Halladay, baby.
That's Roy Halladay. That's what I thought it was. Roy Halladay. It should be.
It's Roy Halladay.
All right, good stuff, man.
We got
Roy Halladay. Saying get Spencer Howard in that rotation. Yeah, I expect that to happen sooner rather than later.
Roy Halladay.
Rest in peace, brother.
Absolutely.
All right, let's jump into the questions here. We got Aaron Nola first. He's going, mid to late second. I've seen him go early second in some of these big expert leagues. These 15-teamers. Problem is, though, man, like, what version of Nola are we getting? Like, this guy is just. It seems like he's just totally up and down. He had a good year 2 years ago, or. Now, I guess 3 years ago, then 2 years ago, it was meh. Then last year was awesome. So, I mean, what are we buying in again? Like, everybody bought in last year or 2 years ago and got crushed from it.
I'm buying in on him. I feel like he's going around guys like Castillo and Buehler, and I feel like he could put up relatively similar stats with them. While I do feel like his floor is a bit lower just because he's been so inconsistent. I do think that he has, the ceiling to be, put up like a 310. I think that he's a really great pitcher. His K rate, it shot up almost 6% last year.
Yeah.
And that was kind of due because he started to. I feel like I read something somewhere where he started to make a few changes to his pitch arsenal, I think that he can kind of continue it. So I mean, I'm in on Nola. I think that he's a really good pitcher, and yeah, I feel like he'll be the ace for that team. Very, very clearly, as AJ had pointed out, they've got about 3, maybe 4 guys that can really pitch the ball for them.
Yeah. I mean, it was a ridiculous rise for the K rate. Again, 2020, not as many games, so it's kind of hard to judge it a little bit, but he dropped his left on base percentage a little bit last year. His whip was just over 108. I mean, that's pretty solid. Can't go wrong with that. I like Nola a lot. I think that he needs to get out of his own way sometimes and just go out and pitch the ball, not get bothered by things that might go wrong. I think that's where he starts to just get into more trouble. So I think we saw a little bit of that last year. Let him, go out, do his thing, and just not worry about everything. So I'm happy with him at the top of the rotation for sure. So, all right, next question here. I mean, we could keep it very short. Is Bryce Harper being undervalued? Sorry, at his current ADP of 18. I mean, that's the short version. For a little bit of backstory, 2019 he did get off to a slow start. With his first year in Philly. But he still finished 35 homers, 114 RBIs, 15 stolen bases. Last season, he was definitely on pace again for similar stats. And he also cut down his strikedown rate last year. So what are your thoughts on Harper?
I love Harper. I love him. I think he is undervalued. This dude was a top 5 pick in fantasy. And then I feel like he went to the Phillies and that kind of all just, fell apart for him. But like you said, he still finished that season, 35 home runs, 114 RBI, 15 stolen bases. What more can you really want from a guy? And again, you look at his baseball savant page and it's just littered with dark reds. The dude had a 20% walk rate last year. He's a safe bet to get on base all the time because he has a great eye at the plate. He walks consistently at least 15% of the time. And, him lowering the strikeout rate, I think it was just kind of him kind of starting to understand the way that pitchers pitch to him. There was a time where pitchers started to throw a lot more breaking balls to him, and he was struggling with that. I feel like he just over time kind of gotten used to the way that pitchers will battle him and, really kind of come into his own. And, I'm grabbing him all day long at that ADP. I feel like, he's a great home run threat. The average, I feel like it's not going to be 300. But I feel like he could hit around, 275-ish. And, I think he's almost a clear lock for 100 runs, 100 RBIs, just because of how much he gets on base. And yeah, I feel like he'll be a huge part for the Phillies lineup this year. And I feel like, after this year, you might see him starting to sneak back into the first round for drafts next year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and apparently Scott Rogers here on Facebook, who's listening, appreciate you listening, man, or watching. You apparently don't agree, but that's fine. Hey, we all got our own opinions. I like him, man. I like the fact that my knock on Harper for so many years was I thought he was immature, and I thought he was just going up there just trying to hit the ball as hard as good, and it hurt his value. It hurt him literally. Because I think he was over swinging and then going out in the outfield and running into the walls, just being an idiot. So he was missing time. And then, when he was there, he was just trying to hit the ball as hard as he could. And he was striking out too much. He was missing the ball too much. He wasn't hitting the ball as clean as he could. Last year, when we saw his walk rate go up like we did and his strike rate go way down like we did, I feel like that was a sign that he was maturing. I mean, the guy's, 28, going on 29 now. Like, it's about damn time, honestly, in my opinion. So we're just seeing a lot of signs that he's just maturing as a player. And yeah, he was paid heavily. Maybe some of that first half of the first season with the Phillies was, oh my gosh, I signed this gigantic contract. We saw it with Manny too. Manny in San Diego. They both struggled that first half of the first season. You know, it was just all the pressure was like, we signed these epic contracts that have never been signed before, and we have to play up to it. And there's too much pressure on them. And once they just went, you know what, screw it, we're just going to play our game, they figured it out, and they're playing like they should have played. I mean, his offensive WAR last year in 58 games was 15.4. That's crazy. That's more than half of like his season, his last season with Washington. Granted, his MVP season is nowhere near that, but the signs are pointing up for him. I think he's slightly underrated, but again, our ADP 18, it's hard to say that he's that underrated, but I think he's within the realm of a late first round, early second round pick. So let's jump into the last question here. And I mean, look, AJ kind of alluded to it. The trend of the offseason was relief pitching, because the Philadelphia Phillies needed it more than any team who was going to compete. They had the worst bullpen in the majors last year, 13 blown saves, 14 games, they lost 14 games. It's just awful what they did. A 7.21 ERA. They clearly went after the bullpen, and they should have. Now, the question is, though, is what's going to happen here with the closers and things like that? Like, who do we trust? Neris, Watson, Kinsler, Archie Bradley? I think to me, I've got my one or two guys, but want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, they made a lot of, they made a lot of additions this offseason with relief pitchers. And I do feel like it'll be a little bit of a committee at closer between Neris and Bradley. And I feel like you could also maybe see Alvarado step in every now and again. Mm-hmm. But, I feel like, I really like what they did this year. As a Yankee fan, I was kind of hoping that we would grab guys like Kinsler or Tony Watson relatively cheap like they did. I feel like those are great deals for them, even though they're aging veterans. They're still valuable pieces at the back of the bullpen. You got Neris, Bradley, Alvarado, Kinsler, Tony Watson, and I'm a big fan of Connor Brogdon. He's a youngster. I feel like he could do really well and kind of maybe even someday be their closer of the future. But I feel like right now he's kind of more of a middle inning type guy. Let's throw him out in the 6th, 7th, just kind of let him get outs. But I feel like they did enough this offseason to really solidify that bullpen. And yeah, I'm kind of steering away from Neris and Bradley and fantasy just because the committee. I'm really unsure of where they're going to be, but I do feel like this bullpen will take a major step forward this year.
Yeah, I agree, and I think AJ's hoping that it happens.
I mean, it's almost impossible not to take any kind of step forward. I feel like Helen Keller could walk forward easier than what this bullpen did last year. It was so god awful to watch, and I can't watch that again this year. And I love Bradley. I've loved Bradley for a long time. Watson, I mean he's been good. Kinsler has been good. Like you said, they're older guys, but they have some closing experience. They've got plenty of relief experience. I like it. And I like Alvarado too. So Neris has been okay at times. I don't think he's not closer material in my mind.
I've been passing on him in TGFBI. I'm taking the bottom end of the closers, and I've taken like Rich Rodriguez over him. I've taken Montero over him, I think
Wandy Rodriguez over him.
Yeah,
Find him.
I'm going that far, but
whatever.
It's not good. I mean, like they don't bring in Archie Bradley as the guy who's probably closer 1B.
No.
For nothing. At least the other two have nobody there. They're just going to get traded at some point. So that sucks. But I mean, whatever. I'll take the better pitchers over a guy who's probably going to lose his job in the first 3 weeks. So anyway, let's move over to the Washington Nationals here. Newcomers to the team. I'll start with the guys who we're not going to pause on. Kyle Schwarber, John Lester, and Brad Hand, all solid names. Josh Bell, though, the guy who I wanted to pause on, very intriguing player in my opinion. Like, this guy had breakout material all written all over him for years. Just star player. 2019, it finally came to fruition. He was amazing, and that was at that point, like, everybody got him for basically free in drafts. He skyrocketed up drafts in 2020 for good reason. You hit 37 home runs and 116 RBI. That's going to happen. And it just bottomed out. It could be COVID year, whatever, but 226 average. Like, it just, K rate went way up for him. Like, and Pittsburgh moved on. And Pittsburgh was like, see you later. Bye. Now he goes to the Nationals. Like, what are we thinking is going to happen with Josh Bell? Like, we thinking more of 2019 or, what?
I want to say he falls somewhere in the middle, but I don't want to sound so negative because I feel like he just had such a meh year last year that in the middle is probably not the greatest. But I feel like he's a little bit closer to his 2019 self. If you look, he still hits the ball really, really hard. That was evident last year. Yeah. But like you said, his K rate skyrocketed and his walk rate kind of dipped, and he struggled hitting off speed pitches. I feel like that kind of had a little bit of that was like kind of a result of the COVID year. They took away the cameras that you're able to use to look, or like the footage. I mean, to look at the pitcher beforehand. That kind of had a lot of pitchers struggling. A lot of batters struggling. You had Javi Baez that struggled from that. Mm-hmm. You had, JD Martinez just was not his self last year.
JD already said he came out and said he wasn't prepared for last year. So, like, I don't even know if that's the cameras. That's just he just basically said I came out and was lazy. So, but at least he owns up to it.
But I feel like that might be the case with Bell. He's moving to obviously a better lineup.
Much better.
Soto there. I feel like this helps Soto a little bit too. Gives him a little bit of protection around him where he's not the main guy in the lineup anymore. I feel like he could be a really sneaky rate value. Like I said, the power is there. I feel like he'll be able to get a lot of RBI opportunities. And, I feel like we kind of see the strikeout rate kind of normalize a little bit. As it closer to what it was in 2019, right around 19-20%. And even before 2019, he was averaging around 17-18% strikeout rates. It was just a weird jump last year. So I'm kind of banging on 2020 just being a weird year for him.
He's actually also the only switch hitter that they have. So,
wow.
Batting cleanup, that's pretty helpful, I feel like. But yeah, I like Bell. I think that he'll be a little rejuvenated in this lineup. It's definitely a much better lineup than what he was dealing with in Pittsburgh. Last year, I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's kind of had more years like last year than he did like 2019, his breakout year, but I'm pulling for him to have another good year.
Yeah, I think I don't think he's as bad as last year, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if 2019 was his career year ever. So
yeah,
nobody's expecting that, but he is somewhat of a value this season. What is his ADP now that I want to look it up? Josh Bell. I mean, we're looking at a 1.7. I mean, I have him at 117. That's still, I still think that might be a little low. I'm just, I do my rankings basically straight off of projections. But his ADP is looking like it's around 140. So yeah, I've got him way higher than the ADP. Wow, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, I might be buying some Josh Bell. So all right, let's jump into the next question here. We've got Max Schwarber or Kyle Schwarber. Sorry, I thought I had them.
Well, you didn't do the lineup there. You didn't do the lineup.
Oh, I didn't. I'm jumping into my question here. Yeah, sorry. Lineup. Bleh.
Yeah, let me just steal your question.
I'm
while
sorry here.
we had to
All
break
right,
it.
so lineup here. Sorry, we're not in the question. So lineup here. We got Viktor Robles leading off right now. Juan Soto, Trey Turner, then Josh Bell, then Kyle Schwarber, Starlin Castro, Jan Gomes, Carter Kieboom. The starting rotation here is Max Scherzer, Patrick Corbin, Steven Strasburg, John Lester, and Joe Ross. So yeah, AJ, jump into the real first question.
Okay, so question one. Max Scherzer, after carrying a sub 3 ERA and sub 1.03 whip, the only reason I use that is because he was sub 1, except for I believe it was last year, maybe the year before. No, sorry, 2 years ago. He was 1.3, 1.03. In his first 5 years in Washington, Mad Max had a very non-Scherzer-esque season last year in 2020 with a 3.74 ERA and a 1.38 whip. He's dealt with some injuries, and he just always plays through them, which I feel like hurts him even more, literally. But, I mean, he's also going to be 37 halfway through this season. So are you trusting Max this year?
I'm passing on him. I feel like his best days are behind him. The strikeout rate is always going to be there, and they call him Mad Max for a reason. He's always furious on the mound, and he talks to himself. It looks like you watch. I know, like, a lot of times you see college pitchers do that, or when they get pumped up. Like, he looks like a college pitcher, but that he talks to himself, mumbles. You hear him like freaking groan every time he throws. But yeah, I'm passing on him. I think that his better days are behind him. Maybe if he falls relatively deep enough, I'll grab him, but I wouldn't be really confident with him as my number one starting pitcher in my rotation for fantasy, at least. I feel like the strikeout rate will be there, but you don't know what you're going to get, and like you touched on, injuries have been a factor for him the past few years, and I feel like that's just the fact that he's getting older. So he's a fade for me right now. Maybe that changes over the course of the year. Granted, it'll be too late by then. But yeah, I'm passing on him. I'd rather go other ways.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't like Max too much. Even at the end of the second round in a 12-team league, I don't really want to buy on him. I feel like somebody's going to snag him a little earlier anyway, just because it's Max Scherzer. The strikeouts are phenomenal, but I do worry about the injuries. Guys like him, like, I look at him and he's getting into that Kershaw range, right? Where, like, Kershaw, when they're on the mound, they're fine. But it's like, how many times are they going to get injured? And you're right there, like, they're getting older. AJ, you and I know about this. Man, you hit this kind of age range, man. You do not heal as quickly as you used to.
For yourself, bro.
Yeah, I'm still dealing with the back injury from
over here.
December. But yeah, those guys,
aches and pains.
What?
I said, speak for yourself. I'm a specimen over here. And then I said, a specimen of aches and pains.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I'd much rather pass on him, take a guy who's going right around him like a Bo Bichette as a hitter, and then come back around and take a guy like Jack Flaherty or somebody like that who's younger and good and is up and coming, and not have to take the risk on a Max Scherzer. So I'm right there with you, man. But yeah, let's jump into the question that I was trying to ask you earlier. That's Kyle Schwarber. Man, he was incredibly bad last season, dropping his average below 200, and it wasn't even close. It was like 188, man. Like, no, his K rate was abysmal. The power is still there thanks to a crazy high hard hit rate. But I mean, what's the thoughts coming into this season? His ADP is, I mean, he's not quite free, but he's bottom of your, double digit rounds here. You taking a chance on him now that he's, changed scenery with Washington, or have people just finally figured this guy out and this is who he is?
I mean, I feel like this is just who he is. He's a power hitter who's he's almost like, a poor man's Joey Gallo. Gonna struggle to hit for any, sort of average, but he's gonna provide, solid home run potential. Looking at his ADP, he's going around like 190 to 200.
Yeah.
And feeling like, depending on where my outfield is, I might just be like, let me grab him and hope he hits me, 30, 35 homers this year. But I'm not really into him. I feel like, the power is great and, he walks a lot, but he's another one of those guys like Alonso where he can just get into a groove where he's just striking out at the plate nonstop and it's just going to kill you for fantasy. And yeah, he had almost a 30% strikeout rate, and that was back to, his norms after he took a step forward in 2019. And that was due to a change in approach at the plate, but I don't really feel like, he's really anything special. And I honestly pass on him and look for, cheaper sources of power elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm also kind of surprised that the Cubs didn't use him at DH more often last year, considering they had the option to do it. Because, I mean, yeah, he improved. They improved defensively, but it went from a -7 WAR to a -3.7 WAR defensively. Like, still not good, guys, and still not worth it. So, yeah, I know it's just. Yeah, I'm going to pass on a guy like that. I've never been a big fan of them unless they're like completely free in drafts. And he's still not free. There's guys going around him that I think I'd still rather have. But I don't know. AJ, you got thoughts on him?
No. No.
Nice. I mean, like, I'll take a Christian Walker, same positions, and stuff. And,
I
much better average, and equal enough power. That's an easy decision for me.
So, finishing out here, a season ago, Viktor Robles was being touted as one of the next big stars in the game. This is coming off of a 17 homer and 28 steal season. Definitely solid stats there. But things went real bad for him in 2020. His batting average dropped to 220. The power and speed. What power and speed? They were gone.
3 and
3
4
homers, 4 stolen bases. I mean, I could do that in MLB.
No, you couldn't.
So,
yeah, it would be the show. Okay,
is he worth
There you
taking
go.
a chance on at his current ADP of 176, or are you just avoiding him at all costs?
I really don't like Robles. I'm avoiding him at all costs. Yeah, if you're lacking stolen bases, he does still have the sprint speed. He has 80th percentile sprint speed. So I feel like he can still grab you a few stolen bases here and there, but other than that, I'm ultimately passing on him. The power, just in my opinion, is not there. I feel like what he did in 2019 was a mirage. He was never really touted as having too much power. He was always a speed first kind of guy. And I feel like that's kind of just what he is now. He'll probably, he'll get playing time, he'll be their main center fielder, but I'm ultimately passing on him. And, while the stolen bases are solid, I don't know how many he'll get, maybe 15. And even then, I feel like that's not enough to justify grabbing him at that point. He's a total fade for me.
Yeah, I'm not targeting him. I agree with you completely there. My thought is that like he's going so late, and that if I've kind of grabbed a whole bunch of infielders and a whole bunch of pitchers, and I maybe need an outfielder, especially when we got some speed, yeah, I might take a shot on him. I mean, at this point in the draft, like, you can drop him and you're not going to lose, right? Pretty much what it comes down to. Because at this point, I'm willing to take on the risk. This is where we talk about the risk earlier with some of these guys like Max, who's going way high, but the risk is bad, right? But yeah, and Trent said it here, Robles is a great baseball player, but it unfortunately doesn't translate into a great fantasy player. I agree with that. but it could translate into a good enough fantasy player. It's not going to be 2019 where he was just, I mean, after that, like, what was he, a 3rd round pick the next season? It was so crazy. I was like, no way. But now that he's going in round, I don't even know what round it is. What round is that? Oh geez, 176. I can't do the math right now. It's super late.
It's like 15.
But yeah, it's like 15, 16, and I seen him go later than that. So it's one of those where, like, you can take the risk on him at that point if you need some outfield help, especially with some speed, and hope that the power comes back a little bit. And it's just not going to be a total waste. But let's jump into the standings projections here. Mike, go ahead and give us your standings projections for the NL East.
I feel like age is going to kill me here. Just as to what I have with Phillies. But I
that's probably wrong, but you're entitled to.
I feel it's going to go Braves, Mets, Nationals, Phillies, and Marlins. And this division is, honestly, it's one of the best in the MLB. So I could really see any of those bottom 3 teams making a push for, being a top 2 team in the division. But I just feel like the Mets and Braves are so far ahead in terms of pitching. And while their lineups are both great, I feel like the Phillies just don't have that good enough pitching. The Nationals have a lot of question marks as to who's going to bounce back. Are their pitchers going to stay healthy? You have Strasburg and Max that are dealing with injuries constantly. You have Lester, who's 37, 38 at this point. He's a shell of his former self. And then, the Marlins they're great, but I just feel like they just don't have the offensive power to kind of, stick up there and kind of fight with the big dogs. So that's the order I'm going with.
Joe, I'll let you have the floor before I speak.
You're not gonna like me either. It is
I already
Atlanta, the Mets. You already don't. Atlanta, the Mets, the Nats, the Phillies, the Marlins. The same thing. That's what I had written down, and it's not going to change. I agree for much of the same reasons Mike said, so I'm going to just pass it on to you, and you can go with your Phillies as number 1 and be wrong.
I'm actually not going to take the Phillies number 1.
Okay.
I can't. I would love for it to happen. I don't think this offense is enough to overcome the bullpen woes that they faced last year.
Not even that, but I think the starting pitching is slightly lacking after Nola.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not great, but I think the offense can help carry them a little bit more. But again, we're talking 14 games that were lost when the Phillies were winning by at least 2 runs.
Well, yes.
That's extremely detrimental. I mean, you cut that in half, and that alone makes them a playoff team last year, potentially. So I'm going to go Atlanta first. I'm going to put Philly second if the bullpen straightens out, followed by the Mets, and it's going to be like a 1 to 2 game difference between the two of them. The Nats, I think, are going to fall off. Schwarber's not going to help them carry that team to better than 4th place. And sorry, Marlins.
You made the playoffs last year, but it ain't going to happen again. I love the pitching, though. I really do. I just don't like the team enough.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. Well, that is it for the show. Mike, I want to give you an opportunity to let everybody know where they can find you on the internet and all your good stuff that you do.
Yeah, so I mean, you can find me on Twitter at Sollicito1, right next to my name right there. And if you want to give me a follow on Instagram, it's Mike_Sollicito, spelled the same way as in my Twitter handle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll be continue to write for the Fantasy Six Pack. You can find me on the website. I believe my username is Sully SOLLI 18. And yeah, I look forward to continue to writing, and I hope
Awesome, man.
podcast someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you on, and look forward to what you have lined up for the site. Have a good night, man. We'll get you back on here again.
Sounds good. Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much.
All right,
Thanks, Mike. Yes.
All right, AJ. So
the Phillies were 7 games back from the lead last year. So again, if they get half of those wins that they already had that they lost, they're a playoff team. So
yeah, no, I feel you, man.
I think it's hard pressed to take the Braves down.
Yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere. Their team is just good all around, so it's tough. But yeah, I did have a tough time putting the Mets over the Phillies and even the Nationals. Like, I think those 3 teams are like razor thin margins. Like, it's good, it's going to depend on what injuries happen and things like that. But if everybody's healthy, I think I put the Nats just above the Phillies because Mad Max, if he can stay healthy all season, he's another 5-6 wins himself. Yeah. So that makes that much of a difference. So, all right, man. Well, I think that's all I've got for the show. I want to thank Mike for coming on again. And next week, we've got the NL Central preview. We're back Thursday night. So check y'all later.